Hello, everyone. It's very good to see you. Just have a couple of things before I get started. My name is Anjali Arundekar. I am the co-director of the Center for South Asian Studies at UC Santa Cruz, along with Darda Newman and Megan Moody. Before I say a little bit about our event, just some Zoom protocol, because as you know, these are perilous times and we have very ambitious and creative trollers who tend to enter our Zoom session. So if I could just request that you not video or record anything that we do today. And if you do tweet, which I hope you do, about the fabulous things you're about to hear, please tweet with care and deliberation, because as you know, things can get out of hand very quickly. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our event for today. But before I do so, I want to say a little bit about our center and welcome those of you who are joining us here for the first time. And I also want to give a big shout out to our two graduate fellows, Keshav Batish and Shruti Gokhale, who have been managing things from India and from Santa Cruz in California, not Santa Cruz in Bombay, for those of you who are tuning in from Bombay. So before I start, I want to say something about our center. We are brand spanking new. We are small but furious, and we are dedicated to exploring questions of social and economic justice. This is our first year, and we have already been embraced and benefited from people joining us from different continents, and our speakers have been wonderful. So let me say a little bit about our event today before I turn it over to our illustrious speakers. As we extend our support for the farmers' protests that inspire, incite, galvanize, and continue to attend to the persecution of minoritized bodies, be they Dalit activists, farmers, Pasmanda Muslims, feminists, and the list goes on, let us stay focused on the history and present of occupied Kashmir, a landscape that has been mired in lineages of struggle, protest, and violence. In curating the event for today, we are guided not by the fetishization of coverage or the placations of location. Rather, we are called to think with the multiple figurations of Kashmir, equally as a marked geopolitics of violence and loss, and as a vibrant epistemology of abundance and refusal. We are summoned here as well to directly engage and collaborate with the efflorescence of cultural production, scholarship, and activism that emerges from within Kashmir, to not just gesture towards Kashmir, but embrace, cite, and read with its multiple iterations and locations. For example, I'm thinking here of the many wonderful texts that have been recently published or are forthcoming that signal the wealth and learning of writing and thinking on Kashmir. Some select examples would be the forthcoming Routledge Handbook of Critical Kashmir Studies, edited by Mona Bhan and Dipthi, among others, and two exemplary monographs that I have personally read recently and learned an enormous amount from. Arthur Zia's Resisting Disappearance, Military Occupation and Women's Activism in Kashmir, and Saiba Varma's brilliant The Occupied Clinic, Militarism, and Care in Kashmir. But before I turn to the pleasurable task of introducing our wonderful speakers for today, I want to leave you with a piece of a nazm, a key genre in Urdu poetry that speaks to some of the economies of violence and possibility that I have invoked here. This nazm is by the renowned Kashmiri poet Rukhsana Jabin and reproduced and translated by my comrade in arms, Suvir Kaul, in his magical Off Gardens and Graves, Kashmir, Poetry and Politics. Jabin, a poet who has survived crossfires, bombings, and terror threats while working, she's now retired from the state run Radio Kashmir, was known to have famously said about outsiders writing about Kashmir, quote, "They have also suffered, but we have lived inside the fire. What they will write about, what they feel, can never be about what we feel. Here is a fragment from a nazm that begins with the line, and this is again a translation by Suvir Kaur from the Kashmiri. So the nazm begins with the line, "This death, how pitiless." And I won't read the whole thing, but I will read the last poignant fragment. A white shroud wraps around him today, and dreams are now as if forgotten by him. All desires and wishes left here, and he now distant. The day he named the day, called dark clouds kept calling. He was tutored at length to call the hours of the night the day. Truth, speaking the truth, he went. Now, speaking the truth today in satire and image is chief guest for the evening, Mir Suhail, a political cartoonist and illustrator based in New York City. He is from Indian occupied Kashmir, where he grew up and started his political cartooning career, drawing for a local daily at the age of 14. He has drawn cartoons for leading print and digital news media magazines, too numerable to count here in the Indian subcontinent and internationally, but some notable ones would be CNN, Amnesty International, Caravan, ActionAid, and more. His work has also been profiled in many public platforms, including Al Jazeera English and BBC. I am equally grateful to have Dr. Dipti Misri here, who will engage in a conversation with Sohail. Dipti is Associate Professor of Women and Gender Studies at the University of Colorado Boulder. Her research focuses on literary and visual representations of militarized occupation in Indian administered Kashmir, and she has also published frequently on Mir Suhail's art in that vein. She is a member of the feminist scholarly collective known as the Critical Kashmir Studies Collective. Now, before I turn it over to them, just a couple of Zoom protocols. We have, of course, muted all of you, and we will spotlight the speaker. But if you have questions, please message me privately, and I will put you in a queue. And when we turn to question and answer, may I urge you to have your videos on, because we enjoy seeing everybody, and the speakers will enjoy seeing the love that you're going to give them during the Q&A. So for now, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dipti and Sohail.
I'm going to join in the applause of our main speaker today. So hi, everybody, and thank you, Anjali, for the invitation to engage Sohail in this conversation. I'm just absolutely thrilled to do this as somebody who has been following his art quite closely, not only his political cartoons, but also some of his other visual art, which we'll talk about today, hopefully. So I'm really very, very grateful to have this opportunity. And so what we've, just to give you all a preview of what is to come, we have focused the conversation primarily around, of course, the very pleasurable, wry, ironic, hilarious images that Sohail puts out on a daily basis. And one of the sort of pleasures of preparing for this was to just go through the vast volume of art that he puts out on a regular basis and just try to thematize them. We said, we're going to kind of split this up into maybe 5 or 6 categories. That's the most we can get through today. And of course, as we go along, if things come to mind, I will be playing the role of trying to pull them from the internet or doing things like that and sharing my screen with you. So we have a very lovely and pleasurable slideshow that we'll be talking through. But before that, we're just going to have a back and forth between Sohail and me, just to give us a sense of what, where he's coming from, what the sort of motivations are and the political conditions animating his art. And so we'll just start the conversation, Sohail. And I thought I would begin by asking you, and in the course of having a conversation before this, you and I have spent many hours talking to each other about some of the sort of backdrop for your art. And one of the things that I thought would be interesting to start with is the question of how you came to political cartooning. And when I asked you that question before this event, You mentioned that you were born in 1989, which is a really kind of interesting landmark watershed year in the recent history of Kashmir. So I thought, I just wanted to invite you to begin there and just start talking about, from 1989 to your recent move to the United States. How do you see the evolution of
Yeah.
your work?
So it's a long story. I don't know how to make it short. Yeah, but I will try. So yeah, I born in 1989 in Kashmir downtown area called Kavdara. So it was a very happening time and place also, because it was a peak militancy peak in there. I don't remember because I was child, I born baby, but I don't know. I always thought कि whenever a woman is a pregnant, or जब वो situation होता है, तो doctors recommend that you should see good images, you should think good, you should positive, but I was always imagining my mother, I was born 1980, and before that I was, and I think how much suffering was there, she faced in that time, and before, I think, and after, obviously. So yeah, I born there, and I brought up there in Kashmir only. My studies were there, my schooling was there, but yeah, in between there was a lot of things. So जब हम छोटे थे, I get of nightmares. I didn't understand politics very well, because बच्चे को क्या पता होती है. But I know there are some elements, something which is very dangerous. You should not indulge with them. I remember there was a Eid, and my uncle gave us that toy gun. So we came back from Eid pray, and I saw this military guy there. There was a banker, a huge banker, and now I know the history about that banker is very horrible, because a lot of people got killed, tortured in that banker in Kavdar. It's a very famous banker. So I saw this army guy, and I tried to hide, and I was so afraid. And till now I realize why I do that, because it was just a toy, but you can understand the fear, how much fear there was. So and I got a always nightmare कि मतलब मैं देखता हूँ कि मतलब my area where I born is burning all the time. And I told my mother once, जब मतलब जब access होता है, you try to, it was so painful, and I tried to discuss with my mother. I told her, like, what's going on, I just see this nightmare all the time. So she told me, how you know that? I said, I don't know, it's I just saw in dreams. So she told me, when you born after 2 years, they burn the whole place. And and you are not well, we have to take you to the doctor. And it was crazy time. So yeah, मतलब उसी माहौल में पैदा हुए, उसी माहौल में जिंदगी गुजारी. I मतलब social problems भी बहुत थी. My father was thrown out from his family, family things and all. He don't want my mother should be get hurt, and he except leaving that place. And मतलब कुछ भी नहीं था. And we went to other place, very मतलब terrible life, I can say. But my mother manages, she was very strong. She's a strong woman till now. But I know she's not well, because everyone is depressed in Kashmir, and I think I'm also, because a lot of things are happening. But we are all strong, so we try to manage every day to make ourselves better. So I remember मतलब कि कैसे उस जब जब हमें निकाला गया, तो we have a small family, my brother, my sister, my mom and dad, or every day and alternate day military came, crackdown hota tha, and they took my father. And we are always like, we were so afraid कि क्या हो रहा है, because understanding नहीं थी. And sometimes we are in schools, और मतलब firing हो गई, किसी को गोली आ गई, suddenly कुछ हो गया, and my mother runs, and she wants to मतलब protect us, हमें वहां से ले जाती थी. So ऐसे ही जिंदगी गुजर गई. और हम कैसे देखते थे, I remember there was a big ground in front of our house. So जब भी क्रैकडाउन होता था, वो सारे मेल्स को ले जाते थे वहां पर, और वहां बिठाते थे. And I was lucky, I think, because I was so young, so little, so they couldn't, like, take me also, because I was, मेरे से क्या होगा, मैं बहुत छोटा था, 2-3 years old. So but हमेशा उस खिड़की की तरफ देखते थे कि क्या हो रहा है, and how they treat my family, my loved ones and my people, there. So and slowly, I was doing cartoon from my childhood. I was watching these Tom and Jerry, and matlab, every child see these cartoons. But but I always think कि ये टॉम एंड जेरी, हम आई जस्ट ट्राई टू रिलेट दिस द करंट सिचुएशन जो हमारे साथ होती थी उस टाइम पे, कि ये तो हमारे साथ भी ऐसा ही हो रहा है, वी आर ट्राइंग टू सेव आवरसेल्फ, बट बट कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, दैट एनिमेटिक animation is there, like how you try to save yourself, and like, and then one day I was in school and my friend got killed, so, and I think that was a क्या कहते हैं, point where I realized it is very problematic, and psychologically जो seriousness वो जो दिमाग में हो गई कि नहीं, because I was in home and my mother didn't allow me to come, go out, because there was a tense situation, and but I tried to manage to leave, and I went that place where his uh, dead body was not there, but the blood was there, and when I last came here before going, उसके जब मैं यहाँ आया उससे पहले मैं कश्मीर गया था, and I tried to went that place. I saw, like, I want to see, like, कैसा है, but it was horrifying, I got those, images in front of me, and it was so painful. And that place is like that only, it never changes. वो जो छोटा सा कोचा है जहाँ पर वो नाली में गिरा हुआ था, मतलब मतलब उसका ब्लड था, it was there. So and it starts from there, I start making cartoons, and मतलब उसके बाद ज़्यादा politics में हुआ, because every day and every month someone died there, और और जो भी ये situation थी वो freshen up हो जाती थी, so it's also, I remember I got psychological problems, I think every year, and I tried hard to, like, take care of myself, and it's I didn't take medicines, definitely, but
And was your art a part of that, of the taking care of yourself? This,
yeah, definitely. I think because you can't speak. I remember हम बच्चे थे तो there was this militant got killed. Okay, so we are discussing, babies are discussing, like छोटे बच्चे किसी भी चीज पे बात कर रहे, तो स्कूल से आ रहे हैं, हम बात कर रहे हैं इस चीज पे, because it was very famous that time, so, and this police guy and military guy hold my neck, he heard something, we are talking, and he hold my neck, or and said, "What, मतलब क्या बोल रहे हो?" Like I was so afraid, and we were afraid because two friend of mine was also afraid. So I was, क्या करें? So then I was trying to, हाँ, भारत ने ऐसे किया, like, how to save yourself, But it was from beginning, कि मतलब that fear, I think obviously, मतलब, when you don't have a, freedom to talk, act, so you try different ways, like I think art is one of the way you choose. And I think, art is also I feel like, people have like, I don't, पहले उस time पे मुझे नहीं पता था, but slowly I understand when there was a social media, and I try to, connect myself with people who live outside Kashmir. So then I realized, art is very powerful medium, because it's a visual, visual communication, and everyone is familiar with certain visuals, like humans are similar, trees are similar, oppression is similar, so they can relate, pains, they can. I think that's really important to, matlab, uh, to convey your pain to more and more people, and it's also not, matlab, conveying your pain, also is try to share, and they can also, because there was I remember when I was in Kashmir, so there was Kashmiri thing only, Kashmir में conflict है, लोग मर रहे हैं, torture हो रहा है, so many things. When I went Delhi, there was also problems, you know I got introduced with those problems, and they somehow was familiar, because it was all politics, but obviously those problems was not in Kashmir, like वो उतनी highlighted नहीं थी, मतलब, but we also got raped. Matlab, Kashmiri woman got raped, and but what, like in India, every day horrible things are going, so but I like, I got introduced, like, how, like, these issues there.
So I wanted to ask a follow-up question from there, Sohail. I'm very struck that you're describing your evolution as an artist as the result of, an early encounter with images, actually,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
you're saying that kind of pushed you chose a visual medium to, it sounds like you're working through some of that pain through your art. You're using it
Hmm.
as a way of connecting with other people's pain, etc. And so I guess my question is, why, why cartoons?
Oh, okay.
Why
So,
cartooning? Why not painting? You come from a family of musicians.
mm,
Um, why cartoons? And it's also interesting to think about, like, political cartooning is really a vibrant form, right? In Kashmir, like we have, of course, your work. There's a work of Malik Sajad. BAB is one of the famous political
mhm.
cartoonists. There's Sohail Naqshbandi, and many others. And, maybe we can also talk about, like, these are all male cartoonists, like there are very few women in that field. But first, I want to just hear a little bit more from you about why cartooning then becomes the form. If you're able to narrate that, I mean, I know
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
always possible to
No,
do
no,
that.
no. I think it's a really important question, because I study in fine arts. So when I saw my colleagues, my artist friends, they made paintings, mm, every kind of art, sculptures and all. So I don't want my art should be limited, in terms of display. Like for example, I don't want, like, there should be a gallery and particular community, particular people should come there and see my work. So I think cartooning is also, and also, like, I want to do cartooning because I was watching cartoons all whole my life. Abhi bhi dekhta hu. And it is very powerful, you can just change, the meaning of, elements, and it's like that, like for example, if there's an issue, I use different elements jo unko represent karte hain. Uh, and I don't know, I think matlab, I was good in cartoons, and I want to become a cartoonist because I was doing cartoons, and then newspaper becomes something, which gives me a platform where I can show my cartoons. एक चीज ये भी था कि मतलब, I don't want to go into these big walls where my pictures,
Mm.
will be hanged and particular people should see. It should it's for people, it's for matlab, our community. Everyone should get access to see, and and to forward that message. It was like that, and also I feel you know what, in college, when I was in college, matlab, I think बहुत ज़्यादा मुझे ना ये pressure किया गया कि why you are making cartoons, it's out of art, it's not art, it's something else. But yeah, there was a a lot of cartoon which I was following, like BAB was there, I was matlab, and
Mm.
also when you saw someone's work and you see so much power in it, and you want to do that, I think that was one of the reason.
Mm.
And yeah, I think I do not only cartoons, I do illustrations also, but mostly cartoons. I like, I want, it's a very powerful way, they're very political also.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Suhail. So that should segue us into the sort of the main feast of
Mhm.
this event, right? Which is the art itself.
Mhm.
So I'm going to now start sharing some images from the slideshow, and then we'll talk
Okay.
through those just the way we discussed. And
Mhm.
so if everyone will just give me a second to share my screen, which is something I say those words every single time I'm sharing my screen. I always say on Zoom, I'm now going to share my screen. Um, I don't think I'll need any sound, but here we go. So, okay, so I think I'll give people a minute to look at that. There are a range of images, and then we'll go through a few images. And so, I'll just introduce the way in which we were thinking of this when we put these images together. And this is just a very small selection of a large number of images where you represent Kashmir in the form of maps and flags, right? So the question that I want us to talk through, I want to hear you reflect on is the question of how Kashmir appears in your work, as territory, as flag, as symbol, as desire, as, sometimes embodiment, all of that. And so I'm just going to go through some of these images, Suhail, that we put together, and you can decide which one you want me to pause on and say more about. So,
Okay, so I made this image for one of basically it's a book cover. So it just like it's the same thing, I just try to use elements, try to use, because when you talk about Kashmir and कैसे इसको glorify किया हुआ है बॉलीवुड में कि डल लेक और कश्मीर beautiful women, उनके गाल like apple जैसे होते हैं, races, racist comments and all. So I try to show that life is so hard, the waves are not normal waves, they are barbed wires. So we are trying to push our matlab, you know like it depicts a life, everyday life. Imagine कि अगर ये reality होती, एक जो नाव चलाने वाला होता और उसको barbed wire से barbed wire के मतलब जो waves में मतलब अपनी नाव को आगे चलाना होता, तो how it feels.
it's a stamp.
Yeah, it was I made this a stamp. I just try to play with my drawings, but I'm saying कि, the idea behind it, like, वहाँ की life बहुत hard है, it's so difficult. When I came here, New York में, I thought कि, like, my life will be a little bit, fun, and I will enjoy. But I don't think so, because जब आप I remember when I मतलब जब आप घर में होते, it's a small example, तब आपको कोई फिक्र नहीं होती कि गैस बंद है, सब कुछ ये बिजली बंद है, वो है ये, when you go out, then you feel that कि हाँ मैंने वो बंद किया है नहीं. So इसीलिए it's like that, when you leave your place, कश्मीर से जब मैं आया, मुझे लगा कि I will be like, fine, happy, I enjoy my life, because I had a lot of friends in Delhi और उनकी life totally different थी, and I can't imagine that life. So I thought okay, I have time, I can do that, I can think about myself. But when you go out, it's very hard, to because constantly, you will get news and things from Kashmir, and not only Kashmir, I think from India also. So
I'm going to move through some more images just so that we can come back to that one. But I also want to show some more. I'll go through that whole set, Suhail, and then we can come back. You can tell me which one you want to come back to.
yeah.
और भी है ये लास्ट नहीं ये भी है.
Okay. So I think every image has a meaning and background, basically, because ऐसे ही नहीं बना हुआ है कि हर दिन when I draw a cartoon, there's a news, there's a meaning. So like there's a one cartoon on NHPC. So if you go back, so yeah, this cartoon is very old. तो क्या है कि NHPC is taking uh, everything, like resources from our Kashmir. It's like I made a lot of cartoon, how they take our electricity power and they give us small amount of electricity, and we pay. I lived in Delhi.
Massive revenues.
I lived in Delhi. We pay like I think 4 times lesser than what we are paying in Kashmir. I don't know why. And there was a lot of things also. One guy got killed by NHPC guard, and they said it's under AFSPA. If Indian guard killed a Kashmiri, it's also they also relate this with an AFSPA. Everything is, it's not, I don't know, I feel like it's a way of like when you have to occupy someone's place, you try control their resources,
Yeah.
you try to control their
Yeah, and what Suhail, what I love about this image is I think just how with such economy it shows us how Kashmir is literally supplying power and lighting up the rest of India while staying in darkness itself, right? And this little sort of electrical wire at the top also looks kind of like a noose, right? So it looks like Kashmir is literally being strangulated by NHPC. I also, I love this image. You talked about it a little bit, but I also see this as a way, and you can tell me if this resonates with you at all, of asserting sovereignty for Kashmir, right? I mean, Kashmir will only have a stamp when it becomes an independent nation state in
Yeah.
reality, but this is a way of already anticipating that future. Does that seem in line with what you were thinking about an image like this?
Yeah, we always think about that, but it was I think this represents Kashmir, because a lot of stamps which comes from Kashmir is just fake, showing Hangul head, it's, and also I have a problem with Hangul head because it look like a trophy. So not only that, and then showing Dal Lake and all these things which we never enjoy in our life, we never thought कि Kashmiris look like that, we never thought. I give you a small example, ठीक है? जैसे कोई भी दिन होता है, just leave ये conflict. For example, Earth Day होता है. So
Mm.
how you represent Earth Day in Kashmir? So when you travel with the bus, तो right side में पेड़ होते थे एक टाइम पे और आपको green color बस दिखता था. Now there is a green color, but there is no trees. There is army guys standing there. So इतने सारे boulevard पे, डल लेक पे army guys होते हैं. जब when you drive, you will only see green color, and that green is basically army. So huge military, and like this image, I made this recently when there was this NRC, and I think so when I went Delhi, nobody trust me, nobody, they thought I'm lying, about Kashmir, about my life, about everything. I was always telling them, we live in a very problematic place and we are suffering right now, and people are psychologically not well. And I remember I was in this restaurant, and there was one of my friend called me, and there was this lady journalist, and she told me, why you people are talking about Kashmir only, you don't have anything else. So people didn't trust, and now you can see I just showed कि uh, कि जो shadow है जो अब हिंदुस्तान में हो रहा है, whatever it's NRC, CA, or it was before that, it was before that, I वो पहले highlight नहीं हो रहा था, lower caste people उनके साथ क्या हो रहा है. Now it is a limelight, because so much is going on, so much is going on. So I just try to show, because I try, I think मुझे मुझे लगता है कि define करने की जरूरत नहीं है कुछ images की, because they are already defined, कि मतलब क्या हो रहा है, and it comes from people.
Want to for people who are in the audience, before we move on to the next set of images, by way of adding some context to this, I also want to point to the, this is an image from the Economist. I think it was from 2012, which the Indian government insisted that copies of that issue would be circulated with a big white sticker stuck across, stuck on top of it, because they didn't want this particular map to circulate because it represented Kashmir as a disputed territory, right? So in light of this kind of very careful cartographic management by the Indian state, it is interesting for us to look at what your images are doing differently. Also,
So
I think there's so much to say. I think I'm going to move on to the next set. Sohail, I'm sure you
yeah, yeah, I think every cartoon has story, and like this cartoon, after 370 I got married 6 days before
Mhm,
abrogation. So you
mhm.
can imagine, I never saw celebration in my life. शादी भी की उसमें भी मतलब you got a lot of pain and suffering, and we were there, my partner and me, we were there. We like we couldn't move, we just it was painful, like I felt कि मतलब हमारे पास बस आंखें हैं, हम टीवी को देख सकते हैं जहां पर वो चैनल आ रही है जिसमें you know वो बंदा बोल रहा है कि हम 370 आर्टिकल खत्म कर रहे हैं, बाकी we don't have anything, we don't have arms, we can't move. So it was so terrible. And this is the same thing, like people, so yeah.
Yeah.
This is also about women, I made a lot of woman figure now. तो
Mm,
उस time पे था नहीं, because I was working in a newspaper, you have to follow editorial policies, you have to make cartoons on day to day,
mm,
news. So mostly like men was getting killed, men was getting tortured. But हाँ मतलब बीच में I was making cartoon on women, because when like जैसे कुनन पुष्प हो रहा है, when मतलब
mhm,
remembrance of Kunan Poshura, I was making cartoons every year, and I think a lot of issues, disappearance, because we mostly talk about people who got disappeared, but about we also talk about women's, who lost जिनके बेटे और मतलब loved ones got disappeared, they suffer a lot. This is one of the image which I made, after like they say, this famous quote, I have very problem with this, how they glorify Kashmir, as a beautiful place, but it is not beautiful. It's not
If there is
beautiful.
a paradise on earth, this is it, this is it, this is it. This
Yeah,
is
it is.
the
It
line
is
that
not.
Jahangir is said to have
Yeah.
uttered when he witnessed Kashmir first, right? The Valley of Kashmir. And so
Mm.
there's an irony here where you're juxtaposing that representation of paradise
Yeah,
alongside.
definitely. And also हमारी जो grandmothers थी वो they're very मतलब they talk about these things, they like my partner's grandmother, she always do poetry, मतलब, and very powerful poetry. So I just basically how India is using these glorifying words, I
Mhm.
it's just a fake, for Kashmiris. People are dying every day. People are, and not only dying. I think we don't have freedom to express our feelings. It's
Mm.
very hard to. So I think I just use these drawings when people are like, this I made for, I think I don't remember, because every day I
So I
draw.
think like actually, Sohail, we can maybe move to the next set of images because pausing on this also reminds me that maybe we can think a little bit about the different color palettes that appear in your work, right? So very often in representations of Kashmir um, as a space, black and red, black, white, and red are the colors that appear. But then we also have this whole set of images that we're going to go to next about saffronization, right? And
Hmm.
there are some amazing images in here. So we'll look at those bit by bit. This is just the sort of thumbnail, but I'm going to go through the set and then we can, you can offer some additional comments if you
Yeah,
like.
I made these cartoons,
One of
matlab,
my
I
favorites.
think 2015. Like this one is new, but the previous one was, I think, 2015.
So any thoughts on?
So yeah, this cartoon, like these cartoon, जब हिंदुस्तान में मतलब saffronization था, but इतना ज़्यादा highlighted नहीं था. So I made this cartoon, like this saffron, the previous cartoon basically. So there are a lot of cartoons. So I try to tell people like what's going on there, why, because we are minority, मतलब majority minority. I don't know how to describe Muslims in Kashmir,
Mhm.
because there's a huge military, and there are also Hindus, and government and all. I don't know how you censor people there. It's also important, क्योंकि वो कहते हैं कि majority Muslims हैं, but वहाँ तो already आपकी इतनी huge military है और governments हैं और government officers हैं जो बाहर के हैं, so
Mhm.
we call, मतलब हम minority में ही है वहाँ पर. And also like these I basically we are Muslim. That's why we are getting killed there. It's the reality. We
I
are.
just want to point to a couple of things in the image that I think are interesting for us to think about, right? Especially for folks who don't follow Kashmir very closely, although I'm told that this is an audience that probably is quite
Mhm.
knowledgeable about it. But the Kashmiri bodies going into this sort of mincer and coming out as saffron, right? These are the sort of
Yeah.
famous purple flowers,
Yeah.
and coming out as saffron threads. So this also reads to me an image of, is it about labor for you, like how are you thinking of that
It's basically recently there was an event here in New York. So
Mhm.
तो यहाँ पर जो इंडियन एम्बेसी है उन्होंने ये ऑर्गेनाइज किया था, where they basically try to show कि मतलब a saffron, we promote saffron, and Kashmiri saffron is one of the famous all over the world. And they try to show that they managed to get few people, and it was not a official kind of, they just do a Zoom call or something. And then I draw this cartoon where I show कि मतलब it's basically they just lie, जो red color जो saffron है, it's just a blood, it just come, it's like meat grinder. अब जब मीट उसमें डालते हैं तो वो ग्राइंड करके कुछ वो पेस्ट निकलता है, it's like that, you have to represent the reality. So then I made this cartoon, and I think a lot of people didn't know about that event because it was not highlighted, nobody knows. So um So they try to change the narrative basically, you know. ये जैसे अमेरिका में भी बहुत सारे लोग हैं, they don't know anything about Kashmir, you know, they don't have a knowledge.
Yeah.
So they got a knowledge from, you know, obviously books and art and, you know.
Right. And often, I think in your images, it's interesting for us to note how Kashmiri blood appears in the form of, in this case, saffron, sometimes as roses, sometimes as flowers. So that's something that runs across many of the images. Um, do you want to talk about these images next?
Yeah,
Or?
I think yeah, this is really important. 2016, you know what happened? People forget past in Kashmir, you know, and they just also use numbers like, you know, 10 log mar gaye, 20 log mar gaye. Okay, ठीक है, सीरिया में तो 1000 लोग मर गए, तो क्या हुआ? But you know, it's also important to discuss a particular person, you know, and like, you know, individually, not a numbers. And also 2016, you know, we forget. I remember 2015. We were like, you know, 6 months we were in home arrest, you know, बाहर नहीं निकल सकते थे. And it was so terrible time every year. So
Mhm.
I don't know why people, we a lot of young Kashmiris got palate and they lost their eyes. Still now they can't even study, they can't go for, you know, a lot of things. They can't go, they can't work anymore, you know. You can imagine कि I remember मैं जब 2016 में घर में था तो I just closed my eyes, you know.
Huh.
And I want to know कि like, you know, मैं क्या देखूंगा पहले आंखें बंद करके. Imagine जब आप थोड़ी देर आंखें बंद करते हैं, फिर ज्यादा देर बंद करते हैं, तो you know, you feel threatened because there's a black color. But you try to find your, you know, people, people like family or friends, you know, उनके images आप इनके शक्ल मतलब, you know, चेहरे आप imagine करते हैं जब आप आंखें बंद करते हैं. You know, I was trying to feel like, you know, how palette victim,
हाँ, और
you know.
2016 का मैं थोड़ा context देती हूँ, because 2016 these images came out right after Burhan Wani was killed.
Yeah, yeah.
And pellet blinding was sort of really widely used by the Indian forces as a mechanism of crowd control. And ironically, like what they were saying was that this is a non-lethal means of controlling protests. But Kashmiris, of course, were out in the streets in the thousands, despite curfews and all of that. And large numbers of them were blinded by these pellet guns at the time. And so these are all images that um, show those injuries, but not these are not photographs, right? They're doing something. And I wonder if you wanted to offer some comment on why you took these iconic European paintings and kind of transpose these injuries on these bodies, right? On these internationally familiar bodies. So maybe some thoughts on who's the audience for this, but also for this set of images, right? You have India's iconic, what Indians think of as their freedom fighters, and you have sort of transposed pellet injuries on their faces sort of digitally. And this is an example of your digital art, right? I think we also talked about wanting to showcase the breadth of your visual work besides political cartooning. This is also a form of visual work that you've
Yeah.
done. So I just wonder if you wanted to, offer some thoughts on audience and what you were seeking to do with this set of images. This, of course, is the famous movie poster of Kashmir Ki Kali, one of the iconic 1970s films in which Kashmir appears as this paradise, as a playboy's paradise. And if you will be familiar with Ananya Jahanara Kabir's book Territory of Desire, where she talks about how views of Kashmir were kind of built not only through colonial photography, but also through Bollywood cinema in a later period. And so I wonder if you want to just think a little bit or just offer us your reflections on what kind of audience were you seeking to address with these images. And
So yeah, so basically, you know, they normalize, you know, palette victims, you know, palette there. You know, you remember that, you know, Indian media is fake. They are criminals. They help Indian government to, you know, promote this lie all the time. So it was like that, you know, because I was in home, like, you know, we couldn't go out because there was a curfew. So this movie came on this, you know, somewhere, you know, I was just watching and I was like, kya ho raha hai? You know, they just, you know, you can see Bollywood, you know, how Bollywood helps them to change the narrative. You know, they sometimes show Kashmiri as a, something terrible, something evil, and or poor, or women's they are curious to marry with Indians men. Like I don't know like what's going on, like we are suffering. And then I try to change this image. I thought ki like imagine जो कश्मीर की जो कली है, जो लड़की है, उसको पैलेट आ गया है. And one of our neighbor got killed, so he was basically working in ATM, ATM that place. He was working in a bank basically, just a small labor, like matlab. And he went to see the ATM basically in curfew. शाम को जब 1 घंटा मतलब वो रिलीफ देते थे, वो कहते थे शाम को 1 घंटा आप निकलो, जो भी लाना है लाओ. 1 घंटा होता था every day, 1 hour. They tell you, okay, you can go wherever you want, and but only you have 1 hour to get food and everything. So he went to see his ATM place, and he got pallet. He died, he मतलब उसकी पेट में सारे pallets आए थे. So then I made these images, कि India ने एक time पे India को भी आजादी मिली थी, and there was a freedom fighters. Imagine अगर British उस time पे या they used ballots, how your leader look like, how your the people who struggle that time look like. So that's why I changed Gandhi and
Right.
Bhagat
The bodies
Singh.
that are valued as opposed to
Yeah,
bodies.
because they use Gandhi all the time, but मतलब they use मतलब they said कि हाँ हमें भी आज़ादी मिली है, we fought and this and that, but but उनकी जो हरकतें हैं कश्मीर में, they're same like Britishers.
Mhm.
So that's why I want to. And also when you tell people, like you have to, people have like it's very difficult to tell them कि okay कि हमें ये problem हो रही है. But when you use these kind of images like famous paintings,
Mhm.
they're very famous. But
Right.
I just try to use those images to get more people. Like people should be, I just try to get more
As a
people
way of
to understand what's going on in Kashmir. Yeah, palette is not a normal thing. It's problematic because a lot of youngster people who have dreams, people who wants to do something, who want to study, or they lost their eyes. So yeah.
All right. I think should we move on to the next set of images? The farmers' protests. And this is such a rich set of images, very recent. I'm going to give people a minute to look at all of them. And then we'll go through, I've isolated a few. And I guess, Suhail, I think it would be useful to hear about, why for a Kashmiri artist like you, why have you taken up this massive protest in India um, in your own art? And these are these are also very beautiful images. So this might also be an occasion for us to talk about the sort of aesthetics in your work. But maybe we can start with that. Why as a Kashmiri artist are you interested in representing
Yeah,
these?
I think first of all, because when I went Delhi, so I got familiar with a lot of problems which happens in right now, which is going on in like India. So एक reason वो भी था, no doubt. And there was a relation, because जब operation, जब आप suffering की बात करें, तो people suffer everywhere similar. If you see, I made 2 cartoons, 2 drawings. One was from Kashmir and one was from these farmers. So जब मैंने वो democracy दिखा, if you go back to that image, so you can see there's a similarity,
Mhm. Yeah. This image on
big,
the right is from Kashmir.
yeah, police
Many years ago.
brutality, military brutality is similar, matlab and when you call democracy and there's no democracy in there, so I think wo ek reason tha. And another reason is like we already felt these things in Kashmir. I was obviously I was not born, but my grandfather was telling me how Dogra Maharaja was, how he was treating, people, people were working like farmers or same farming, I think Sheikhullah changed, this land reform happened. So before that, people, Kashmiri was also suffering like people in Punjab. And I think that was one of the reason. And mostly, I really want, because I think I relate my pain with others, you know, and I want to draw for that, you know. I don't want to limit with.
Solidarity. You're envisioning this as a gesture of solidarity. You've also talked about some of the complications of those gestures of solidarity. Like, do you want to say more about that? Like, so for example, I think this phrase Kashmirization of India has been sort of circulating more and more of late.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
you know, I'm just wondering what kind of possibilities of solidarity do you see yourself as representing in this work, right? So for example, I find this image very interesting. I mean, this is we juxtapose these images because it shows how, you know, a prior image that you had created
Mhm,
around the Kashmiri body with that sort of ironic word democracy stamped on
mhm,
it,
mhm,
you kind of recreate that visual scheme in relation to the farmers' protest, right? So
mhm,
as a way of linking the oppression of Kashmiris with now the you know, the oppression of Indian farmers. And of course, you know, I think many here will know that Kashmiri farmers have also been impacted, right? Like, and have protested in solidarity
mhm.
with the sort of Indian farmers' protest. Um, but also here, I see, you know, once again, this concertina wire is really interesting. I mean, one might say that, you know, the concertina wire is the most iconic emblem, visual icon of Kashmir under occupation. And so it's interesting to see because I think a lot of people saw that, you know, at the Ghazipur, the Delhi
Yeah,
border,
definitely.
you know, wire, nails, all of which you've represented. And so this is an interesting image because it shows that, you know, the farmer whose body is also very interestingly sort of intertwined, like, you know, the vines are literally growing out of the farmer's body, like this site of kind of fecundity. It seems like, you know, despite the concertina wire, the farmer is advancing ostensibly towards Delhi, but one can also read this as a kind of visual bridge in a sense that connects the image to your art around Kashmir, right? And the visual schema through which you represent what is happening in Kashmir. And so, you know, any thoughts on that bridge, the solidarity, the limits of solidarity we were talking about earlier, right? Where Kashmiris are sort of extending solidarity to Indian farmers, and like, you know, do we see other, you know, a reverse form of solidarity flowing or not?
No, I think there is. I think there is people they didn't like I know a lot of artists, they didn't draw, but they share my work, you know. It's so difficult for them, you know, to talk about Kashmir because मतलब Hindustan mein Kashmir, it's a taboo if you say something, you know, you have to well obviously अगर हिंदुस्तान का मतलब आप narrative बोल रहे हैं तो that's fine, but if you are telling truth, it's a taboo in India, and particularly Indians, they try to avoid that. You know, they don't want to. You know how it works. You know, but I think now they realize because कहते हैं ना वो जो पानी आपके you know जब for example कोई और किसी और को प्रॉब्लम होती है तो you don't feel that, you know, that pain that much, but जब आपको होती है तो you realize, you know. And it's all about unity, you know. It's all about unity, you know. I suffer, you know, we suffer as in Kashmiri, so we can feel those pain. We can feel like how you know, patterns is same stuff, that oppression is similar, you know. Barbed wire wahan bhi use karna, yahan bhi use karna, dande marna. So many farmers die, nobody knows, हालांकि उस पे किसी ने news भी नहीं की. So it's the same
Well,
thing.
that is the potential for solidarity,
Yeah,
although those solidarities fail so often, right? I
yeah.
mean, how
No,
much
and also it's
solidarity?
important for every artist, like, you know, who can speak about everything, because we have a social media. We can see everything, you know, all over the world. Mein jo news aa rahi hai. I live in New York. I made cartoon on America. You know, I try to make cartoons on America. I try to make cartoons, you know, whatever things are happening in
Mhm.
Syria and Yemen and whatever, everywhere. So I'm saying, you know, it's आज की जो दुनिया है ना वो छोटी नहीं है, you know. It's not only about, you know, I remember when I was in Kashmir making cartoon in newspaper, so that newspaper was inside Kashmir only, it never goes out. But when we use social media, so people from outside, they also want to know a lot of things about Kashmir. People who wants to travel, you know, they want to know reality. So I think that's really important. And yeah, and also, like, you know, we had a same treatment, you know, from Indian media. So I want to highlight that, you know, Indian media is lying. They don't only lie about Kashmir, they lie about everything. Like they lie about farmers. They told them they are violent. They told them they are doing this and that. And I work with them. Trust me. I spent almost like 2 years working with these Indian media, like firms, you can say. They just lie. It's suffocating, if you work there. I remember when I was there, they didn't even say one word about Kashmiris. I saw Kashmiris dying and getting suffering and get house arrest, but they didn't even say one word. And I was working there, and I couldn't say anything, like because there was no economy in Kashmir. My family is a working class family. I have to earn for them. So मैं बाहर नहीं जा पा सकता था because I don't have I that time I didn't have ability to go America or some other place. So मेरी मजबूरी थी. But when I came there, I thought कि it's a good, I can learn. But unfortunately, I didn't. I just learned how to balance,
Mm.
and
So
so it was, yeah.
I thought it would be a good sort of segue, since you were talking about media, to move to our images about communication in general, right? So you have so many images satirizing what Indian media does, and how it kind of revisualizes what is happening on the ground, right? Like the truth, and represents it. And then you also had, do you want to offer any comment on this set of images?
Yeah, internet, matlab, obviously they highlighted internet, but there's a lot of problem. Like, agar internet ko chhod ke bhi, there's people don't have a, freedom to breathe.
Mm.
So I can understand. But yeah, internet is really important because we couldn't manage to talk to our family. They didn't, there was no net, nothing. We can't even see our family. And I think images can tell you, agar internet hai bhi to wo hai kya. Basically there's a fourth image. If you see, 4G internet there,
Mm.
everything is like, we can't even like, whenever I call my mother, she can't even talk freely. She can't tell me like what's going on. We
Yeah.
have to just talk, hello, hi, are you fine? Okay, I'm fine. Okay. My mother always said, why you are telling me are you fine? You should know, like, meri condition kya hai, so don't tell me. And they can't even talk freely, anymore. And I understand 2G 3G speed. I understand that that's really important because matlab, you have a phone which is 5G, but you have a 2G on it. It's a irony, it's a joke. You can make a cartoon, it's a cartoon. You don't have, I think matlab, sometimes I feel I should not make a cartoon because it is a cartoon. It's just like, you don't have to use your energy to make it. But yeah, but obviously if you have an internet also, but there's so much surveillance
Yeah,
there,
all the better to surveil you with, right? So it's hard to
yeah,
even celebrate the return to 4G after 18 months,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it becomes a sort of an additional technology of surveillance. Um, any One set of images we wanted to also talk about is your many representations of the Kashmir calendar, and then perhaps we should start wrapping up so that we can move on. Anjali, how are we doing on time? Would you suggest that we wrap up pretty soon?
That would be great, yes, because people have questions, and you can show images when people ask questions as well. Whatever whatever you
Okay.
fancy.
All
Okay.
right. So I think maybe like Suhail, maybe we can just show these images, and then if you have any final set of thoughts, you can on both of these sets of images, you can offer them, and then we can just open it up. So maybe just 2 more minutes. So representations of time in Kashmir, of the calendar in Kashmir, like the deadly sameness. And again, that that red, black, and white color palette that comes
Yeah.
up Kashmir, as opposed to all the green we see in these images. Um, and then your images of
Yeah.
the
On
coronavirus. Uh,
social distancing, in Kashmir. So you can like, I just represent, like, I think it's really important. Cartoons are very funny, but it's very painful also. I you can laugh, but when you realize it is very painful. It's really painful.
okay.
So yeah. So these are the cartoon which I made on between when there was a beginning of this corona virus.
Mhm.
So
Okay, so I think we can leave it there for now, and maybe Anjali can open up.
Yeah, that was wonderful and painful and poignant. I'm sure everyone has very different reactions. So Dipti, do you want to stop the screen share and then we can have
Yeah, and then
people?
if there's, yeah.
Yeah, because we like it's people like to interact with each other. So that way, Suhail, you can also see who's here. There are lots
Okay.
of Kashmiri friends and kin here who want to see you. So and Keshav will turn off the spotlight. So, Keshav, we ready? Okay, so if I could just ask everyone to turn on their
Yes.
video screens, that would be wonderful, so that Suhail can see who's here and we can welcome him. And everybody, please, a round of applause for this magical, difficult, and poignant rendering. And I want to thank Dipti for her, efforts in steering this conversation, and also give a shout out to her own work on Kashmir, which has been very important. I have a lot of people who have, DM'd me to ask for questions, and I'm going to turn to them. And again, this is a solidarity event of sorts. So if there are Kashmiri kin, solidarity allies, you want to add something, please feel as if you do. This is not necessarily a conventional question and answer session. So I invite you to share. And again, please tweet with care. We are very concerned about people's safety. And last but not least, Mir Suhail is a working artist. So if you have enjoyed watching and seeing these images, turn to him. His website will be posted again by Keshav. Look at his images, use them in your work. This is how we make it intervention, right? So please remember that he is a working artist. Okay, so I have Suvir first. Go ahead, Suvir. If you could just identify yourself, because we have different sets of people here today from the community, that would be great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Subir Kaul, and Suhail, I'll remind you that many, many years ago, I don't even remember when, we bumped into each other on the Bund. And I was telling Anya that it was the standard scenario of Kashmiri meetings, that when you meet, there is only conversation because all of this history hangs so heavily on
Suvir, you're breaking up a little. Would you ask your question again? We can't hear you.
Was about the fact that many years ago, I don't remember exactly when, we bumped into each other on the on the Bund, which is by the river Jhelum in Srinagar, and Suhail started talking, which I used to think of as the sort of Kashmiri syndrome at that point. When there is a sympathetic listener, there was so much bottled up inside that it really has to pour out. And this is what I learned while I was there. And as I was saying, it's a compliment not only to him, but to the situation at large. Compliment is not the right word. I ended up writing a book to try and come to terms with my own feelings as somebody who thought of himself as Indian and Kashmiri. And when I went to Kashmir, I realized that India as a democratic space has no purchase there in a long time. So having said that, all I want to say, and this is not a question, Suhail, this is a celebration, to say that you provide people like me, and not only people like me, but all the people who are here and the thousands of people who look at your cartoons, you provide us a resource to be able to understand with a critical distance much of what passes there. And what you do is remind us of one detail that we have lost completely. We on the progressive left, whether it is in Kashmir or whether it is in India or whether it is anywhere else in the world, we are convinced that there is no possibility of solidarity, that all we have to do is come up for labels with each other, call each other names that actually distinguish our politics from each other. You are reminding us, especially in your work, of how important it is for even the worst beleaguered minority, that's what Kashmiris are at this point, to be able to imagine themselves in solidarity with resistance politics across the globe. So, Beikyavan, thank you very much.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I I really learn a lot of things from Suvir. He's a really good, really great man. Trust me. And we met once. When I came here. So, but yeah, definitely. We do. I think there's no limitation. There's no limitation. Like as in Kashmiri. जैसे हिंदुस्तान में कहते थे कि कश्मीरी को क्या पता है. They are from mountains. They don't have education. They don't have art. They don't have culture. Trust me, it happens. It happens. When they see Kashmiris, like wearing a farran. But matlab, I think it's not matlab, impossible. Like I draw cartoons on multiple issues. Whatever it is in India, it is in Kashmir, it's outside in Kashmir. I think it's we have capacity to talk about our suffering. I think we should we and also मुझे लगता है कि it's a documentation. कि मतलब every day is a documentation. We don't I remember today I had a back pain. I couldn't draw, but till now I am so upset that why I didn't draw a cartoon. I just waste my day. So I think it's really important for us, like and I think for me art is like a matlab, like a food. I can like I do breakfast every day. Before breakfast I draw. So I think that's really important. We have to understand unity is really important. Then something, one person can't do anything. I feel, but I know there are a lot of people who you know they forward my work to multiple people, and it's like a it's like a unity. It's like a community. It become a community now. I think Punjabis or farmers or Dalits or Muslims, Hindus, Christians, they try to become one. I think art and literature, these things helps to understand each other. I feel that that's why.
Thank you, Suhail. And I wanted to just say that, Suvir is okay. I'm just harassing him. We have many people in line for questions, but Suhail, I also want to say that one of the reasons I was so delighted that you were willing to share your work with us, because what I have learned so much from seeing your images is how you sort of manage the urgency of the everyday with the kind of beautiful production as well, right? So when you said, oh, I didn't make an image today, my back was hurting.
Yeah.
The daily labor, I think the labor, jo aap kaam karte hain, that was the important message as well that I was drawn to. So I'm going to turn to several people who are on the list. And if you've DM'd me, I will call on you. There is a queue. So just please bear with me. We have Mridyu Rai next. If you could just, if you're not on video, just show yourself, please. I don't see, is Mridyu Rai here?
Right.
I'm sorry, we can't see you. Are you here?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Please go ahead. Thank you.
So I just wanted to add, thanks, Sahel. I really just wanted to add a little to what Suvir just said. What I was struck by was something that you actually said during your conversation with Deepthi, and I think it goes beyond solidarity. What I was struck by is, your words was that you understood that it was difficult for Indians to speak about Kashmir in India, and I think that's going well beyond. I mean, that's a level of understanding that I wouldn't even, begin to assume to place on Kashmiris. I think so. To return to Deepti's question, actually, in some ways, I mean, where is the reverse solidarity, right? And so it's not a question so much as to just emphasize that what you said was I mean, to me is extraordinary, that after all of this, that you can still say something like, you understand why you don't hear the same kind of when you are expressing solidarity with the farmers' protest, when your images are showing that you see that what's going on in India is really just that large looming shadow of the cage already in Kashmir, that you that you can understand, that you don't hear the same sort of the return in solidarity is extraordinary. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say. And thank you for your fantastic images.
Thank you
Very,
so
very.
much.
Thank
I
you.
think this is a solidarity, like, when everyone speaks, I think this is the solidarity, it's sometimes it is not that visible, I don't expect, someone can draw, but if someone share or someone talk about that or someone comment, or I can feel that. I can feel now people understand, suffering, which matlab going on every part of everywhere. I think, when I came here, I am telling this everyone, it's when I came here, so a lot of people told me, yeah, you are a New Yorker now, you live in New York, oh, with this and that. So I trust me, first thing when I came here, I saw people who don't have food, who don't have house, because we are came from those places, matlab, suffering is very connected with us, we can't see Trump's tower. I don't get anything from Trump's tower, I don't get anything from there, if I see up, मुझे मैं हमेशा कहता हूँ कि I have a back pain, I can't see up, I always see down, and down there is suffering, people are different colors, getting suffering, like New York maybe. So I think it's really important, like we are here, it is solidarity. I don't have expectations, so but yeah.
If I can follow up on that, Mridu, thank you for that, because I think that sort of uneven transaction is very clear, right? Like, I don't think we see that much solidarity among the sort of farmers' protests for, I mean, in fact, we know that, some of the main luminaries of that protest are known to be sort of, prime accused in Muzaffarnagar riots, what is it, Muzaffarpur. And so, but to turn back to the images, I also want to think about how these images kind of serve as an incitement to solidarity, right? So we don't know how they go down in the end and how people actually receive them. Of course, we can never know that. But in an, image like this, which I'll just perhaps quickly share, in an image like this, where you see, the sort of bloodied map of India on the farmer's face, this is a kind of refiguration of a photograph that was circulating of this bruised face of this farmer, right? I think that's doing something. That is an invitation to Indians to think about what this, this kind of territorial construct of India, this very sort of carnivorous construct is doing to them. And so it's an incitement to solidarity. Visually, it doesn't necessarily point to the limits of solidarity. And I don't know, like, perhaps there are images that do, but I think it's suggestive in that sense, that I think it can serve as a way of asking people to think about those connections without necessarily, kind of lapsing into allowing these images to just do the service of absorbing Kashmir into, a political project that is all about saving the Indian nation state, but rather about acknowledging the violence of the Indian nation state against its own population, but also against Kashmir, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much. And Ridu, thank you for that cautionary note, which I think we definitely need. And I think that's why when we began by saying this is not about coverage or about inclusion, it's about engagement. So I have Anish Gawande next. Anish, please tell us where you are and who you are so that people can learn to love you.
Thank you very, very much. Hello. Hi, Suhail. Hi, Deepti. Thank you so much for your presentation. My name is Anish. I'm a master's student at Oxford right now studying history. And my question actually was on something that you mentioned very briefly, Suhail, about your time with news organizations in Delhi. I remember you were News 18's cartoonist for a long time. And I think that entire set of cartoons is fascinating because it's not The Wire, it's not Scroll. You don't have Siddharth Varadarajan as your editor. You don't have, somebody else as your editor. You're working within some constraints. But the amount of work that you've created on that is a very unique perspective. Ki, and on so many different issues, right? Because you 2 saal rahe honge, and you've created cartoons on, I think, every single, even the most banal issue, which normally you would never think of. And there's a cartoon of yours accompanying it. And how does that perspective come through within the constraints that are placed? Because there is a censorship on how political you can be, what opinion you can express. And I
Yeah.
want to say this because, funnily enough, one of your cartoons accompanied one piece that I wrote very long ago for News 18, which was on Indian politics comes out of the closet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was of a bird sort of going free. I wish I could send it on this chat. But usme, I sort of had included a small section on how the BJP was using LGBT rights to justify abrogation.
Mm-hmm.
And in some strange ways, that cartoon became this bridge between the sort of queer discourse and sort of work that was happening on Kashmir. So I was wondering, you have 6 cartoons on LGBT rights for CNN
Yeah, yeah,
News
yeah,
18. I think all 6 of them are fascinating.
yeah.
Deepti, I wish I could send them to you. Next presentation, they would make for an exciting edition. But
Mhm.
how did you engage with that at your time at News 18?
There's a story, when I went first time, there was a really beautiful people there. Trust me, my editor was really good, and they always help me. They always help me. They understand who is he, मतलब कश्मीरी है, इसको क्या करना है. But they never forced me to do something which I don't want. But obviously there was a editorial policies जो भी दिखाना होता था कि मतलब you have to मतलब discuss first कि कैसे वो ज़्यादा बार, because I remember when this Pulwama attack happened, before that I draw a cartoon for my page, and my editor told me you should delete this because I don't, and because there was some guy who said News 18 cartoonist director is making these kind of cartoon, and how they portray Pulwama attack and all. So then I stopped making cartoons for myself, and obviously there was a lot of cartoons I learned. That's why I'm telling you, it was not only about Kashmir, about farmers, like a lot of issues I understand, when I was in Delhi. But obviously, it was suffocating, there. Trust me, it was suffocating when they discuss Kashmir in front of me. There was 2 people discussing Kashmir. They are not Kashmiri, and like I'm laughing, because inside. So, and there was another Kashmiri guy. He was an editor with me, and he always come. We always discuss this, these things, like how they can discuss Kashmir without Kashmiri, and they always had a particular narrative, one-sided narrative. They never go to places. Nobody asked questions about my mother, like a lot of people, talking about feminism, and they said, Kashmir may, there's no feminism or like this and that. But if they come to my home and talk to my mother, she will going to tell her. She don't know, she don't have understanding about the word feminism, but I think she's a feminist. She teaches me how to struggle. She struggle. She she done a lot of things. Like my partner, I learn from her. We are together for 17 years. और वो love वाला scene, we married 2019, imagine, मतलब इतना साल गुजार के. So मतलब she study here in America, so she teaches me. And I think it's really important to go into the lanes, to go every house and to talk about people, normal people. So I'm a normal person, I'm not a something. I don't know, like about literature and all. I'm just talking about my journey, or जो मेरे around लोग हैं उनके बारे में. So I think it's really important because they are the real sources, मतलब जो बंदा अमेरिका में बैठा हो और वो जैसे मैं अभी बना रहा हूँ, इसलिए because I already felt those pain, my family is in Kashmir, my friends is in Delhi, or in Punjab, my मेरे friends farmers हैं, so they told me what's going on. So I think this it comes from there, I think it's really important. And News 18 was very it was good also because I learned. There was I told you, beautiful people, people like me, when I imagine me in India right now, I couldn't do I can't do what I am doing right now. I live in America. There nobody cares about India here. Nobody is going to come and threaten me and do anything मतलब terrible. So but अगर मैं हिंदुस्तान में होता तो मतलब I can't blame them because I understand they, but they help me, trust me, they never force me. And I think I learned a lot, but it was also terrible. That's why I made a lot of cartoons on Indian media. I know what's going on inside. जो उस रूम में क्या होता है जब वो डिस्कस करते हैं कोई भी situation. So it's terrible.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a lot of questions, and here's what I would suggest is I'll have maybe 3 or 4. If you could keep your questions short, that would be great. And then we will end with Suhail sharing his images with us again, so that we leave with the wealth of that politics and representations for the rest of our time. So the next person I have is Zirvat Chaudhary. I don't know where you are, Zirvat. If you are, please show yourself, tell us who you are, and please ask your question.
Hi, can you see me now,
Yes,
Anjali?
thank you, we can.
Super.
Thank you so much.
Hi, thanks for that. And thank you so much. It's such an honor to be able to learn about this beautiful and moving corpus of work. I was formulating a question that I realized is going to come out more as a comment. I was thinking, so as you were speaking, you mentioned, you used the word documentation. And it struck me because it was such a powerful shift away from the documentary. And I was thinking, there's something about cartoon doesn't do justice to the scope of your work. And to think of documentation as, it's a word that we in art history use very much in response to performance art and the effort to retain something of performance which is fugitive and ephemeral. And I just think there's something so rich and expansive in your work that to call it cartoon or documentary is just to do a great injustice to your work as well. And I just, looking at these images that you've created, they are such a documentation of the act of surviving occupation. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you so much.
Well said, well said. And I think many of us echo that sentiment. I have my wonderful colleague Junaid Sheikh next. Junaid.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you both of you, Suhail and Dipti, for those wonderful images and that wonderful presentation. Suhail, I have a question for you. In that little image, you do so many things. You're informing people, of course, about many things, including Kashmir. You're translating Kashmir. You're changing people's perception of Kashmir, and sometimes also poking fun of people in power or the powers that be. In your experience, what are the people in power or people, what are they more sensitive to? Or what are they most disturbed by? You poking fun sometimes, or you changing the perception?
I think it's, I tell you something, for example, if we talk about bullet, okay, so it's very powerful, element, and it's threatened. If someone get bullet, he can get they can get, killed. So when you make, that power, उस power को shape को आप joke बनाते हो, so उसका meaning खत्म हो जाता है. It's like, when you poke, that political power, and it's why they are afraid with cartoonists, comedians, because they can show this power is not power, it's just a fear. And it's like, if you have a fear, like, obviously you will get afraid. But when you come up with the fear, like, when you think, ha, fear hai, theek hai, whatever, kya hoga, it's like, I think satire is very, I think it's very powerful, changing someone's, imagine like there's a person who changed his beard and all, become something, and certainly some cartoonists came and tried to make, his beard something else, it's like making a barbed wire, or for example, farmers suicide, making a fancy and all these things. So I think it's very powerful. I feel, and they get angry. You can see my cartoon got deleted every day and restricted by social media, like threatened. My family got called or whatever. I think this is the reality. इससे पता चलता है कि उनको कितना fear है इस चीज से. मतलब I know a lot of people feel cartoons are, but I feel like बच्चे जो होते हैं वो बहुत powerful होते हैं. उनका vision बहुत क्योंकि वो cartoons देखते हैं. When you grow older and older and watch something which is made up things, where you can't, I think it's also important. I don't know. I feel like किसी shape को change करना is it's a big thing. It's big thing. और उस shape को वो बनने में जैसे for example जब dictator कोई होता है, he makes his shape. When someone try to change their shape, it's very different. It's difficult for that person. It's like that. Like if you see Nazis, there's so many sculptures, Hitler, Hitler ke sculptures, and he made his sculptures, he made his paintings and all. And they try to basically, they use art and these things and attire to claim a particular era. But when artists came, different from different era, they destroy that era. They destroy that image and destroy that symbol. So I think it's like that. Like cartoons are very, very powerful, because you can change someone, anyone, everyone's, and anything, anything if you like, because like how caricatures are. I think yeah, I know it's funny, but it's very painful also. And also this meaning, I remember when I was in newspaper, I had a little space, very small space, and it was so difficult to make a cartoon, सारा portray इसमें करना. But जब मैं कभी-कभी कार्टूनिस्ट का काम देखता था, I always felt कि जो न्यूज़पेपर में दिखाया गया है उससे ज्यादा मीनिंग है उस कार्टून में, हालांकि उस स्पेस उतनी छोटी. And also visuals, it's so, because we are very familiar with visuals. You you look like me, or you have things around which everyone has, trees, everything. Or फिर एक cartoonist उस चीज को लेके try to give you a comment. And I think, and also I feel like it's not only it's also when you start conversation, it's like my my voice. If I draw something, it comes from me. It is then people discuss, and cartoon can be a way of discussion.
So Bishnush, and then I have Zuni Mir, who I don't see, but if you are here, please show yourself when you ask the question. Bishnu, please.
Actually, I'm jumping in. I'm Bhaskar first. So I've been looking at some of the documentaries that have come out of Kashmir and also Manipur in terms of how the life is under AFSPA rules. And I'm realizing, Mir, your illustrations are very much also documentations, and they perform what academics speak calls a form of witnessing. They're in the mode of witnessing. But what is brilliant is that you bring in the humor, and it's still true that you're probably both laughing and crying at the same time. And I was really struck by your comment that the situation itself is a cartoon, and you feel like sometimes you're drawing cartoons about the cartoony situation.
Yeah, definitely.
Caught my attention. It sums it up very well, what we are.
It is like, if you see what's going on, you just laugh first, and then obviously it's very painful. It's very painful. Yeah.
I actually wanted to just follow up with from that thread. I think you've already answered some of this with to Junaid and Azir, but I was actually asking, since I teach Kashmir in some of my courses, the kind of responsibility you place on us by these illustrations. And there's documentaries or novels or journalistic coverage, they give us a story, right? A prepared story. But you've brought us this immense canvas of documentary fragments, so to speak, which are illustrations. And each of them, when you and Dipti were unpacking it, you gave us the story, right? But if you weren't there, you induce stories from us, right? We have to go do a dig in and look, what is this about? And that's what my students would have to do. So I'm just wondering how you approach the stories about Kashmir that you want to take. Yeah.
So because I told before also, when I came here, I thought I enjoy my life. I can have a different lifestyle here in New York, but it's not different. It gets worse because my family is there, loved ones is there, friends are there. So when you call every day, and every day something they said. So I think that's why and Varna, it's very difficult to follow up. And how media works, Indian media works there. They don't want anything should come out, and they just lie and they try to hide everything. But obviously, whatever I get from my people, from my family, from my it's also difficult because whenever I talk to my family, they never they never talk everything, you know. They try to hide because they are afraid. But there are ways, you know. And I think what I came recently. I think I'm very fresh. I have a fresh memories, you know, about Kashmir and about India. And I married in terrible times. My partner, obviously, we had a very terrible time there. So I think it's because of that. It's because of that. I really want to go back to Kashmir, but it's very difficult for me also, you know. And I think it's also good, you know, if I don't go back, but like people like you know, if you saw my work and you feel like, you know, okay, we should go once or we should go again and again and try to understand what this guy is, you know, trying to make. So I think that can be one of the, you know, way. But yeah, like, you know, I feel it's a documentation for everyone. We have to talk about these things, you know, every day. Like we talk when we have breakfast or dinner and we discuss our problems, you know, everything. I think cartoon is one of the, you know, same way, you know, you can just like people like me, I can draw, so I draw. So yeah.
That's I think that's a wonderful response to what Bhishnu and Bhasha were asking, and certainly has made me think. I have Zuni Mir who has a question, and Zuni's bandwidth is low, so she will ask the question without video. And then we'll end with a comment from Anya, and then Dipti, if you can start showing the images when Anya speaks, that would be fantastic. Thank you. And before we go to Zuni, I just want to thank everybody again for being here and for celebrating Suhail's marvelous work. Go ahead, Zuni.
Thank you so much, Boy Jigger. That was a brilliant presentation, and Seta Meharbani for your excellent, brilliant work, which so beautifully shows not just the torment that we are under, but our ethics of generosity, our ethics of solidarity as Kashmiris. Bless you for that. May you create art, may you live in liberty and azadi for thousands of years to come. And the little question that I had posted on the chat was, initially it was, how do upper caste Savarna Indians feel when they see your work, when they see this witnessing of oppression, of pallet injured bodies? But I want to change that because it again centers them, their affect, their centering in how they feel when they see our pain, and they need to decenter themselves. So the question I want to ask them, the whole audience, is what's your practice for making sure this genocidal occupation of our land and our people ends? What are they doing? Are they calling for a boycott? What are they doing? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zuni. Suhail, do you want to add something to Zuni's powerful question?
Yeah, I think you know, it's really important for us, you know. It's not they should realize, they already realize that, you know, they are getting benefits out of, you know, whatever they are doing right now with us, you know, with not only Kashmiris. I think people from India, you know, now they are doing the same treatment with them. So I think, you know, they already know what they are getting. They're getting a lot of things, you know, like that's what they're doing. They're getting benefit out of, you know, our suffering. So, but it's our role to be unite, and I think, you know, talk about our suffering using different ways and different, you know, like art, literature, you know, and I think that's a good way. And I can see like people here, like Black Live movements, you know, I learn from them, you know, how they utilize art and, you know, activism and writing, everything, you know, and they are successful, you know. Whatever I am right now here in America, I feel like it's because of them also. I can't deny, you know, I can't deny like what they do, how they suffer, you know. Imagine, you know, like they were slaves, nobody care about them, and now they are somewhere and they're trying hard to be, you know, somewhere. And I think, and I a lot of people told me about them, you know. I was always, you know, I feel like I'm in America is because of them, because I'm a different color, I know, I get racist comment every day, but I can understand, and I think we have to learn, and I think, that will, Baki jo oppressor hai, oppressor is going to be oppress us because they are getting a lot of things, a lot of things. So, yeah. So, yeah.
Anya, do you want to add a comment, and then Dipti will show the images?
Yeah, I just want to first of all salute you, Sohail, for a couple of things, not just the art, but I think that your generosity of spirit is avant-garde, okay? And I'm following on what Mridu and other people have said here, but I want to see that, I want to say very quickly that your approach to what is going on is politically avant-garde, because, and when I say avant-garde, I mean that politicians, even in Kashmir, haven't had the brains and the guts to both talk about oppression and to create links with other people. Maybe this is a way of educating people in India that, and I don't mean everybody, I mean the people who are being oppressed in India, the Dalits, the farmers, with whom you are making solidarity. I see you as reaching out to them, and it's a process of education. And what your work is telling us is that it is the pedagogy of the oppressed. From the position of oppression, you are able to teach others how to have that spirit and understand that without that solidarity, we are all sunk. But I have a small question, and you already gestured to that when you just ended. What is it like? Will America being here make your work? Will it rejuvenate it? Do you see it going in new directions? It must be so hard to be away from there, but also so liberating, as you've already said. But I also want you to talk about the forums. You were part of a newspaper, and now, what are the ways of dissemination that would be a dream for you? And what can we do? What do you expect from communities who learn from your work to also disseminate your work? I would love to know that.
Yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, I think I'm lucky, first of all. I left India and Kashmir on that time जब ये बहुत कुछ हो रहा था. I'm the one of the luckiest guy. I don't know, is there anyone else, जो इस time पे निकला. But yeah, definitely, living in America is also a privilege as a Kashmiri, and because I can draw here, and I feel like, there are people who try to understand what's going on in all of the part of world, because I saw a lot of people are working here, a lot of organizations, they talk about everything. And I try to work with them. I work with couple of organization and multiple issues. Halanki, I didn't know anything about voter suppression. Imagine voter suppression, which we never know. In Kashmir, we don't know what is voter suppression because I never vote. I never thought I should vote. But here I understand things. I understand voter suppression. We don't even have a privilege to talk about voter suppression there in Kashmir. So I think it's good for me also because I am also learning, because I'm getting a lot of, every day I learn, every day I get a lot of knowledge from people around me. And I think, yeah, I don't know, I just draw, I feel like, that's why I told you, it's just a comment, like when I draw something's my comment, then you have to forward that, or you have to discuss that, you have to take that comment for, it's somewhere. So, or you can comment and I will draw and I will start, and it's a collaboration. I think it's not only one person's work. It's क्योंकि एक बंदा अपने साथ बात नहीं कर सकता, and he wants a lot of people around to discuss things, so I think that's well, I will going to do that, I'm not going to stop making cartoons, so I think.
I think on that note of learning and solidarity, I want to thank Amir Sohail for his extraordinary work and for Dipti Misri for shepherding us through that extraordinary work. If you could unmute yourself and clap, that would be wonderful. It's one of the few pleasures that we can't do on Zoom, but I really want to applaud Sohail. Thank you all for joining us. We are grateful, and we hope that you will return to this forum in the spring. And again, please follow Mir Sohail's work on social media. He is a working artist. Go to his website and support his work as much as you can. Be well and Shabba Khair, everyone. Thank you.
I wanted to say Lal Salam.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Lal Salam. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Everybody, thank you. Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.